Let me just quickly talk about what are the takeaways of this particular video. In this video, we will deep dive into how the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer's role will evolve and transform by 2030 within next 5 years. We will use a 4-step process to cover this transformation end to end. The step 1 with the empathy map of CISOs today. The empathy map will cover what the CISOs say to the board and teams, what the CISOs think about but don't have the particular voice or expression, what they do daily, what they feel emotionally, as well as the gains and pains. This is a fixed set process of deriving the empathy map and get more details about a particular role to get the next step of analysis, which is in the step 2. Then we'll look into the task evolution map by breaking down the current responsibilities into 3 major areas. 1, the tasks that are automable by AI, the tasks that could be automated. Second is the AI-augmented task, where there is a shared responsibility, shared contribution between humans and AI. And the third is the unique task which AI couldn't conquer. So in the 3-step process, again, within the step 2, all the tasks that could be automated, the CISO's task, then the shared task, and again, the pure shift and focus tasks that the CISOs must focus on. And the step 3, we will talk about the 2030 skill roadmap for CISOs. And within the skill roadmap, we'll talk about again the 3 things. 1, what skills will disappear? 2, what skills will need transformation? And what skills will become mandatory? And finally, the 4th step, the future CISO archetype. So how the future CISO in 2030 would look like, what the titles may be, the new title possibilities. Would it still remain the Chief Information Security Officer, or it would be like a Chief Resilience Officer or a Chief Trust Officer? And how success will be measured, the KPIs of the 2030 CISO. So do keep watching and share your comments of what next role you'd like to see within these 4-step process. Let's start with the step number 1, which is the empathy map. And in this particular video, we are focusing the enterprise CISO, the enterprise CISO of a large organization. I'll also try creating videos exclusively for CISOs, which are for platforms or specific sectors like government sectors and all. Do share your comment if you want that particular segregation and specific deep dive of that particular track of CISOs. So this video is purely around the enterprise CISO, the CISO of a large organization, how that role will evolve. So within the empathy map, the point number 1 or the step number 1 is what they say. So as a CISO, what CISO says today, so which is one of the common top sayings of CISOs. We must align security with business strategy. This is one of the major objectives. Second is we can't stop every breach, but we must contain impact. CISOs also talk about compliance doesn't equal security, which means security is much more larger in amplitude versus compliance. Talent shortage is hurting us. This is another common sayings of CISOs. We need more automation and visibility. Security is a shared responsibility. So these are the few things, top few things which CISOs talk about. The second aspect around the empathy map is what they think but don't openly express. So a few of the things commonly the CISOs feel and think. My job is unmanageable. Risk is growing faster than budget. That's a common pain which the poor CISOs can't openly express. Another thing that they say is a breach is inevitable and it even cost me my career. Although it is an opportunity, blessings in disguise if the CISOs have experienced a breach in their entire career. The incident response experience is quite an impactful line item within their CVs. But again, if a breach happens, the entire blame, the entire focus, the entire spotlight goes on to the CISOs, and it may even impact their career. So this is something which they usually don't openly express. The third thing is AI could replace parts of my team. Will leadership pressure me to cut headcounts? Again, we're working with reduced headcount is another challenge of CISOs, which could be a top-down derivative coming from the top management. Another thing which CISOs think but they don't openly express is that there's too much of noise, tools, vendor, alerts, managing the daily activities within all of this. It's really a challenge. Another thing that's the board doesn't really understand cyber risk. And this is again the irony, because everything under the umbrella of cybersecurity or security or the responsibilities of a CISO, the benefits, the ROI is all intangible. And for the board to understand the impact and the quantification, usually or many a times board doesn't or couldn't understand because their businesses are completely into a different track. They have a business focus. However, the cybersecurity is indirectly proportional to the business performance, user experience, as well as the credibility. So all of that. So getting the understanding with the board is something which CISOs experience as one of the challenging tasks, but again fail to express. Shadow IT and Gen AI users are spinning out of control. It was Shadow IT, which is not only assets, but applications, access, softwares, everything, which is explosive. And from Gen AI perspective now, the data is being overwhelmed into all these engines, and the responsibility of CISO is to control the data which is being used and passing on into these engines. So all of this is getting unmanageable, which is a pain for the CISOs. The third aspect, what they do. So what are the few tasks that CISOs find as their top priorities? So from the analysis, the presenting cyber risk posture to the board or to the CFO and the CEO, leading strategic security programs like security, zero trust, cloud security, data security posture management, and threat intel, managing multi-cloud and hybrid attack surfaces, CISOs managing budgets, the vendor evaluation and the audits, handling escalations and crisis communication, and the incident response associated with it, negotiation with regulators and insurers, again a major complex task of the CISOs, building security culture and driving adoption across the organization. The step number 4, which is what they feel, how CISOs of 2025 feel apart from their day-to-day activities. One is the stress and burnout. This the constant state of alert. Being in that particular state puts them into a stress and burnout. Loneliness, because only one who knows the full risk picture. They are at an intersection of the CIO, the CFOs, the CEO, the business, and everybody, and they are the ones who could actually visualize, but everybody else, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, they work in silos. Pressure, revenue, brand, legal impacts, all of that, that's another complex pressure coming on to the CISOs. and the distrust between security and business streams. So this is something which everybody who is listening or watching this particular video would resonate. There is always quite an unrest between the business teams and the security team because they've been trying to safeguard the data and controls putting in, however, impacting the user experience from the business teams and the overall business performance. So that's where it's always a catch-22 situation. Fear of reputation damage, personal or organizational. That's one of the massive. I mean, unlike any other particular role globally across any organization, CISO's role is so complex because not only from the reputation of the organization, the business they are involved in, provided there is anything, any kind of negligence or any kind of a security breach or anything that could happen, it could impact the organization as well as the personal credibility as well as the reputation. And the pride protecting the enterprise quietly. These are all, I mean, this is the only one of the end of the day, the CISOs feel that particular pride because they are the ones who are watch guarding and securing the organization 24/7. Within this empathy map, the fifth item comes as the gains, the desired outcomes. One is the predictive security versus the reactive firefighting. So these are some of the desired outcomes of a CISO, where they expect, it's expected out of the CISO as well as they expect from their teams from predictive security versus the reactive firefighting. Faster decision making supporting from AI. So all of that within fraction of seconds, there may be an incident response that is required or some important action, and faster decision making is something which is an expected outcome of a CISO or from a CISO. Clear board support and cyber risk ownership, another expectation, and strong ROI visibility for investments. So while you're saving the organization from all particular data breaches and complexities, an ROI visibility of investments, that also needs to go back to the board because that brings continual focus and ability for CISOs to perform better if the investments and approvals keep on flowing without any particular challenges or restrictions. Skilled team with continuous growth. So how to keep the teams particularly skilled with current evolution of technology, how technology being evolving and having the right skill set, either training the existing team or getting the right trained people within the team and creating the right organization of the CISOs, some of the desired outcomes. Brand trust and regulator confidence. So again, one of the important expectations that comes out of the CISO. And now, sixth point, which is the pains and barriers and obstacles that CISO face, which is one of the important of starting. The first and foremost is the explosion of threats, the AI-powered attacks that are coming in. It's one of the major challenge, or I would say obstacle or pain for CISOs to fight the AI powered attacks because it is overwhelming across and it has been continuously exponentially increasing. Low maturity in business risk understanding. Now this is an irony and kind of a detractor. While the CISOs are there trying to safeguard against the evolving threat landscape, the low maturity in business risk understanding is another detractor which reduces or impacts the performance of the CISO. Tool sprawl as well as the integration challenges. Putting in the right tools may not be the utmost solution. Making sure the integration of those solutions, the tool sets, everything, orchestration, getting the visibility out of those tools, getting the right complete performance, visibility, optimize output, and value for money or the right ROI. That's again one of the pain area for the CISOs from the technology side. And underfunded security roadmaps. So again, with the evolution of AI, although there are organizations which are heavily investing, but again there are restrictions, reservation, because it is always an enabling function. Eventually, it's supporting the business, and if the revenues and other complexities are not optimally fulfilled, security budgets always takes a backseat in such scenarios. Now, regulatory uncertainty, cross borders, or AI governance, all of that, these are some of the challenges. Now, what this reveals, and now what with all these inputs or analysis, this reveals the future-ready CISO must shift from a technology defender to a business trust and resilient leader. So the existing CISOs need to shift from a defender to a protector, which is a protector of trust, as well as having the resilience of continuous threat expansion and evolution. So as a business trust and resilience leader, the evolution of this role happens. But some of these things which are blockers for this particular evolution are the complexity, the people's gap, the board translation challenges, as well as the AI-driven threat expanding faster than defenses. The AI threat landscape is so rapidly evolving, and the skill gaps, as well as the buy-ins, as well as the priorities, complexities, are all cumulating together, creating a lot of challenge for the existing CISOs, and that's where the evolution comes up. Now, in the next step, we'll talk about the CISO task evolution, how these tasks would evolve as next. Now, in the next task, which is the CISO task evolution map, we will classify this, as mentioned earlier, into 3 different categories. One is, what are the tasks, the CISO's tasks that will get automated? What are the tasks that will get augmented? Which would be a shared between CISOs as well as the AI, and there would be a shift in the way those tasks are performed. And third are the human exclusive tasks of CISOs. So the one which are automated, which is AI can take over entirely, high automation and orchestration impact. From the augmentation, AI enhances, but human oversees the shared responsibilities. Finally, the human exclusive task, which requires judgment, politics, and trust AI cannot replace. From automable tasks, which are the tasks that can be highly automated, the number one task is the alert triage, where alert triage, how AI changes it, how the AI will transform this, which would be through autonomous SOC operations with AI noise suppression. So while AI triage, we have SIEM source already in place, but with the AI integrated SOC, the autonomous SOC will reduce the AI noise, or I would say the alert noise, or the threat fatigue, or the alert fatigue with the help of AI. And the SOC shift to the exception management only. The second task which would get automated is the threat intelligence process, where AI scraps, correlates, predicts, and attack vectors. Significant reduction in the manual analysis. At this point in time, threat analysis or threat intelligence analysis is in many of the organizations done manually, completely in the transformation of autonomous activity in the next 5 years. In fact, quite sooner than that. Vulnerability management scanning. So AI-driven prioritization based on exploit likelihood, and as well as not a periodic exercise, but in real time. This is how vulnerability management scanning and prevention will transform. Faster remediation and risk-based patching, all of that autonomous, so that you will not require VA or PT analyst and engineers performing these actions manually. It would be a complete autonomous and real-time process. Another activity which is the log analysis and seam rule tuning. And this is, I would say, one of the major manual challenges that organizations face at this moment, and completely overcome by and then transformed by AI, where AI learns the behavior, auto-tunes these rules as the time progresses, and the operational effort is completely reduced to near to zero. Vendor compliances and checklists. So AI reads the contracts and maps to standard automatically. So the entire compliances and contract review process, the manual activity which used to take weeks, could be done in minutes for the vendor compliance process. Procurement cycle would definitely speed up that way. Excuse me. Policy enforcement as well as monitoring. So from policy enforcement, AI auto-remediates the drift from baseline. So anything that drifts from the baseline, automatically AI will identify those baseline shifts and gaps where manual intervention is no longer needed, and it will automatically realign and auto-align so that those shifts and non-compliance is never a challenge. And strong shift from detection to prevention. So it would be, at this point in time, a lot of effort goes into detection. With AI, it would be, detection would be in real time, while prevention would be a proactive and quite an impactful process. Identity lifecycle tasks, like AI predicts the risk access, or I would say the risky access that are there, access that needs termination, and auto adjust of escalated privileges, all of that, that would be all taken care by AI, and frictionless zero trust implementation could be a real enabler in the process. So this automation will reduce almost like, as a result, the complete task automation, these tasks would no longer exist by 2030, and which means 20 to 40% of current operational burden would move to autonomous. And that is a complete transformation, giving a high impact window to have an efficient DILO, which is day in life of a CISO, so that they could optimize how they bridge the gaps as well as take strategic discussions and decisions. The other aspect, we'll talk about the AI-augmented task, which is the shared human-AI controls. One of the tasks is the threat hunting, where how AI can help. It's the AI can simulate attackers' behavior, generate hypotheses, and human role within the threat hunting process could be a shared responsibility where the CISO validates the high-risk hypothesis. Next is the incident response and crisis management. AI performs the first response, forensics, reconstructions, while humans handle stakeholders and the communication. Quite an important aspect in incident response and crisis management. The risk management and the quantification. AI model business impact and scenarios and its likelihood, while the CISO interprets and sets the tolerance level. Next comes the security architecture as well as the cloud governance. One of the major aspects in the current evolution of technology. AI recommends secure patterns, while human aligns with the business strategy in this particular transformation as a shared responsibility. Third party and supply chain risk, where AI continuously evaluates supplier risk posture, while humans can perform the governance decisions, stay focused as well as human-led. So all the governance-related activity within this third-party and supply chain risk could be managed as a synergized responsibility between AI and humans. Security budget optimization, where AI calculates the ROI, risk trade-offs, while CISO negotiates and prioritizes those things. And finally, under the awareness and culture building, where AI personalizes training, which could be quite a creative aspect to make sure the organization is aware, as well as they are abreast with all the transformational knowledge and how security is changing, while CISO drives the culture as a leadership agenda. This shared evolution would result into, or I would say, the CISO evolves from an operator to a risk strategist and an orchestrator. So, with this shared responsibility, the operational task reduces from CISO, while they shift towards the risk strategist as well as the orchestrator. So that's another transformation, or I would say the consolidated transformation shift that happens into the CIO, or I would say more prominently the CISO responsibilities. And finally, the human exclusive task, which is immune to automation, which would continue to remain with the CISOs by 2030. One is the board influence and risk storytelling, where the executive trust, political nuance, and credibility, this cannot be replaced by AI. Another task is the ethical decision making, where accountability for gray area choices remains with the CISO. Regulatory negotiations and advocacy, ambiguity, or and interpretation of law. So the ambiguity between the law as well as the interpretation and applicability of the particular cyber law, all of that, this remains with the CISOs. Leadership thought crisis. Leadership through crisis, where empathy and calm under panic, all of that, I would say the traits of a CISO will continue to remain with the CISOs. AI would definitely not panic at all, but again, the crisis management responsibility remains with the CISOs. Cross-functional relationship building, where influence at peer level and CXO level, again remains with the CISOs. Balancing innovation versus security, context-specific business judgments, all of that remains with the CISO. So eventually, with this third aspect of completely human-led security, CISO becomes the chief trust officer, in effect, the human face for cyber risk. Now, with this evolution mapping, so what are the shifts by 2030? From the time spent on operations today, it's between 60 to 70% of the CISO's time goes into operations, which would reduce to 20 to 30%. Time spent on executive risk leadership, which currently is between 20 to 25%. This would increase to 50% or more. And finally, the time spent on business innovation. At this point in time, it's almost around 10%, which the CISOs couldn't focus because of their operational involvements and tasks which can be covered by AI, which would expand to 25%. So AI does not eliminate the CISO, it elevates the CISO. So which the future is quite bright, where CISOs perform more efficiently, more proactively, and get the, I would say, the chief trust officer and highly credible role evolution happens by 2030 for the security professional. The role shift from the firefighters to business enabler, or I would say, and the trust architect. So the business enablers and trust architects versus the firefighters. So respect, credibility, all of that also evolves by 2030. In the next step, which is the CISO skill roadmap for 2030. So what are the, again, segregated into three different subcategories. One is the skills that will fade or will be automated by 2030. Second is skills that will evolve due to AI. And third is brand new skills that are required by 2030. So again, a lot of learning transformation to evolve the CISO role by 2030. One of the, let's start on with the first one, which is the skill that will decline or will get automated. Current skill, which is the technical deep dive on alerts and SIEM. Why it declines? Because AI handles the detection and triage, and the AI effect is less hands-on SOC expertise would be needed by the CISOs because it's a completely autonomous process as it evolves. Manual audit and compliance effort becomes the second point, where automated mapping to controls and CISOs focus more on governance than execution. So the executable task goes on to the AI. CISOs shift towards the governance. Tool administration and integration. Again, at this point in time, CISO struggles a lot where there is tool administration as well as integration because security platforms with the help of AI will unify and self-optimize. So the vendor rationalization reduces the complexity. And the other aspect, which is the reactive breach response. At this point in time, CISOs are so much involved into reactive breach responses, but with the help of predictive AI plus auto containment, this would be an autonomous activity in the coming years where CISOs shift to crisis leadership instead. And the overall decline of all these skills requirement or automation because of automation, the value add for the CISO would be in the hands-on keyboard technical expertise, because all of that could be delivered by AI, more of a strategic CISOs or more of a compliance and governance-led CISO versus the hand-on CISOs in the coming future. The next aspect, which is the skill that will transform. So first, which was the skill that will perish, that are not required. Second is skills that will transform within next 5 years. One is, the primary one is cloud and zero trust. How this skill changes from now by 2030 and how it will impact onto our CISO. So the change for cloud and zero trust seems to be must. It's going to be a must on the AI-driven cloud and zero trust architecture and execution, which is a continuous risk-based implementation and configuration for cloud and zero trust. So the impact onto the CISOs shift from the governance to the architecture. Second is the risk quantification, where AI models scenarios, but CISOs interpret that. And the impact onto CISOs is with risk quantification, the risk translate to the dollar value or the amount or the business outcomes. All of that shifts, and this is how the skill transform and how the CISOs needs to adapt in the coming years. Data governance and privacy, where which would change by expanding to AI model governance. Ownership of enterprises' digital trust would be the impact onto the CISOs, because they would be the custodian and owners of the digital trust of the organization or the enterprise. Vendor supply chain assurance, this skill, which would again be continuous AI risk scanning, it would evolve. So strategic supplier partnership would be the impact that the CISOs would be offering versus the standard governance and AI classification and scanning for all the vendor supply chain. Threat intelligence, where AI predicts the attack, CISOs validate, the focus shift to anticipating business impact. Workforce influence, where how would that be from the hyper-personalized awareness programs and all? Because at this point in time, there would not be any generic, because there would be a different variety of level of cybersecurity awareness and skill set within the organization. So it needs to be further customized and influenced in the right way. And CISOs become the cultural champions. So they would be responsible to ensure every employee, irrespective of their maturity, depth into cybersecurity, they understand and act as the key enabler for the security personnel for the organization. And the results, the CISO technical credibility must shift from the technical aspect into the strategic cyber economics. So that's the shift from technical towards the cyber security strategic cyber economics. Finally, the brand new skills which currently are not part of the CISO skill map or skill roadmap, but that would be coming up in the next 5 years, some of which are already evolving. One is the AI governance and safety. So AI-driven threat plus legal accountability would be there. So this is the reason why this particular skill would be required. And the competencies would be the RAI framework, the model oversight, and the kill switches. Digital trust leadership. So this is the kind of skill that needs to be developed within the CISO, the digital trust leadership, because the brand reputation depends on cyber resilience, and the customers trust B2B security influence are the competencies which needs to be developed by the or within the CISOs. They need to work upon all of that. So, and the next one is the cyber crisis diplomacy. So multi-stakeholder communication under attack, crisis management, and how efficiently CISOs would be able to or could be able to manage multiple stakeholders and the communication in a crisis situation. And the competencies would be around the PR, the insurers, as well as customers and regulators, how they manage the stakeholders throughout. Geo-cyber risk and sovereignty, where cross-border changes, the risks that are being evolved, AI-driven laws, all of that. So the understanding around that and implementation and executing the data security and then the cyber risk associated with it, the data residency strategies, how the data, local data and specific local location specific data, how that needs to be managed, and the governance around it, and the compliances. Cyber insurance economics, where AI quantifies the impact for the insurers, and negotiations and underwriting engagements happens from the CISO side, and board communication mastery, which is the number one skill set, a unique skill set. Nobody can snatch it out from the CISOs because that's where the impact happens and the top-down execution across the organization drives. So from the board communication mastery, because the risk appetite must be modeled clarity, and then from the awareness of the board helps in driving the top-down business decisions and its execution. The right storytelling and CFO alignment is one of the key important competency and capability that should be there. And eventually the results that happens, the CISOs become the enterprise risk as well as the trust leaders rather than only a technology leader. So the future of CIOs and CISOs evolves into the enterprise risk plus trust leaders versus the standard technology CISOs. Some of the recommendation, I would say, learning and certifications in the coming years would be the AI security and governance. The learning path could be the NIST, AI, the MIT AI strategy, all of that. The cyber risk quantification, the learning path could be the FAIR methodology, the executed leaderships, and this would be a critical, essential responsibility and capability potential of CISOs, where the board governance programs and all of that could be led and executed single-handedly by the CISOs. The cloud trust and sovereignty, where the learning path again could be EU, AI Act, DORA, or C5. ISC2 and others are already developing AI-specific security certifications. You can refer that. And although this video doesn't sponsor any of product or services, this is purely a non-sponsored video. And then if there are any names that are called out, it's just coincident. You can definitely opt out for different other vendors per se. And finally, the CISO identity shift happens, where the old identity of Chief of Defense shifts to the Chief of Resilience. Somebody as a tool manager shifts to the business risk investor. Somebody as a compliance enforcer shifts to the trust architect. And the tech first becomes the business first for the particular role. And there is no scope for reactive security by 2030. It's a complete predictive and preventive security expectation as a combination of a strong, efficient, effective role of the CISOs. So by 2030, AI will take security operations and CISO will take enterprise trust and the strategic risk. Finally, in the last step, the future CISO role of 2030, AI reshapes the CISO into a business trust leader where cyber risk, business performance, and digital reputation converge into a single point. And in the final step of this future CISO role, we'll talk about the 5 different aspects. One is the new role and title mandates, the key responsibility reshaped by AI by 2030 for the CISOs, and the new KPIs and success metrics, the org structure and influence in 2030, and the final 3 feature scenarios where incremental, transformative, and disruptive. So some of the common new titles and mandates which would evolve to a broader trust ownership roles could be a chief trust officer, where the person would represent as the end-to-end customer as well as the customer and ecosystem trust altogether consolidated together. The chief resilience officer, where operational continuity plus recovery and cybersecurity, all of that comes under the single umbrella. Or the chief security and AI risk officer merges digital plus AI and data risk altogether. So a kind of a chief security AI risk officer could be another title. A focus shift from technology to enterprise resilience and stakeholder trust. So this would be the shift that comes up by 2030, and the responsibilities of the CISO role shifts from the evolution from the first and foremost primary activity, which is the cyber and AI risk governance. It evolves with governed AI risk models, outcomes, ethical risk decisions. Second would be the business impact forecasting, risk quantification in financial and brand metrics, which would be another responsibility coming onto the CISOs in the evolution. Now, with the adaptive security architecture, that's the AI-driven controls that tuned in the real time. That would be the adaptive security architecture. Digital trust strategy, as mentioned earlier, customer partner trust measured and monetized very, very closely and importantly. The geo-cyber and regulatory strategy, which navigates AI as well as the data sovereignty laws. Resilient ecosystem leadership. This is something which is around the supply chain defense plus joint recovery playbook. So if there is an impact, how resilient the ecosystem is with the governance leadership in place. So the supply chain defense and the joint recovery playbooks would be the evolution of the particular role. And the cultural trust leadership, which is the employees and human firewall powered by AI insights. So how that level of awareness and the organization's security would evolve, all of that would be the key responsibilities coming towards CISOs of 2030. Third aspects around the KPIs and success metrics of the 2030 CISOs. Some of the classic KPIs, or I would say the emerging KPIs, would be number of incidents, breach, blast radius, containments, SLA compliances, the cyber ROI, and the risk reduction per dollar. Patch cycle time, which is the preventive prevention success. Tool coverage, which would be customer trust index or the churn avoidance. Audit pass rate, so board risk confidence score coming from the board. CISOs will be measured like CFOs on economic outcomes very soon. The org structure and influence, the change in the org structure. Currently, most of the CISOs in a common organization are reporting to the CIO or CTOs. It would shift to CEO or audit committee by 2030. The power of budget is the defensive ask, where anything that is being asked by the CISO from budget perspective, it becomes or poses as quite a difficult task. By 2030, risk investment portfolio would be developed. Team structure, tool silos, SOC, incident response, all of that, which shifts to autonomous risk operations and the trust analytics. Board engagement, periodic compliance updates, shift into the continuous risk forecasting. And the CISO becomes a permanent voice in the enterprise strategy. So this is the particular shift. Finally, in the next step, were 3 future scenarios for the CISOs. So talking about incremental evolution and the transformational scale, and the third, which is disruptive events. So from the incremental evolution, AI automates ops, but structure remains similar, where role shapes, the CISO is a tactical risk leader with strong board ties. And the transformational shift scenario for a CISO is where the digital trust becomes competitive differentiator, and the CISOs are looked up as this chief trust officer. And finally, the disruptive event, where why it is so transformational, that's the catastrophic AI-driven breach regulatory overhaul, which shapes the role of the CISO as the chief resilience officer with legal accountability. Bringing all the step 1 and to step 4 all together. So shift of a CISO today from firefighter shift to the risk forecasting. The shift of the current CISO from the technical loudness shift to the business clarity. And the current CISOs, the shift happens from the fear-based security towards the trust-based leadership, as well as the final point where the CISOs are the cost center. CISOs becomes a value and the trust generator. AI won't replace the CISOs. AI will replace the version of CISOs who do not adapt. So quite an interesting aspect. So if CISOs are not sharpening their saw and not oiling their lamps in the right time or right frame, there would be a time when they would require all of that, but they have been not assuming that the tomorrow could be today itself. So it's never a future. So sharpen your saw and wish you all the very best. I hope you like this particular video. It's my effort to make sure the future can be visualized. Tell me in the comments what different other roles you want me to structure and give a similar kind of a video with a 4-step process. We can improvise it further. There could be a lot of takeaways, and you can explore the right learning tracks and focus in the eventual success. The objective of this video is to help everyone who is watching, and the right mentorship and guidance happens for the transformation. Wish you all the very best. Stay aware, stay secure, best of luck, and keep watching. and subscribe. Bye-bye.